If you want to effectively delegate tasks to others, then your ability to communicate the details of a successful outcome for any particular task is mission critical. As you grow your business, you'll want to be able to bring on team members that can help you complete different sections of work. Those team members can feel like an amazing blessing or a really confusing curse. But the difference between those two outcomes hinges on you as much as it does on them. That's why in this video, I want to walk you through 3 strategies that can help you become a better leader and manager to your growing team by learning what it takes to define your success criteria. We go into these topics in much greater depth in the collaboration element of the Freedom Evolution method, but let's give you some basics so you can start improving your team communications quickly. Often, when exhausted entrepreneurs start delegating tasks to someone, they usually take one of 2 roads. Either they fall into micromanaging every aspect and detail of the work, which becomes even more exhausting for everyone. Or they take the opposite road of basically assigning tasks, giving minimal, if any, information about what this task means or what it would look like if it was successfully completed. And both of these roads have some major issues. The solution to both is strategy number 1. Define your success criteria. In other words, how will you or they know when this specific task has been completed successfully? What will the outcome look like, sound like, feel like? And you really need to get specific. For instance, let's imagine you're assigning a copywriter to draft an email for you. Then you need to give them enough information about the purpose, outcome, the message of the email to have a direction for them to start heading towards. What can you provide to help them internalize your messaging approach, your preferred tone, the pains and the desires of your target audience, or just your personal preferences about language? For instance, are you a believer or rejecter of the Oxford comma? Hardcore believer. But while some of these things can and likely will get learned and evolve through the process of working together, you will get to a successful outcome faster if you take some time to set them up with guidance from the outset. Your willingness to put in some effort up front will ensure that they can avoid the simple mistakes or missteps that you would be able to steer them around. However, there are also some times when the successful outcome of a task is the completion of a very specific process, which brings me to strategy number 2, document your processes. For years, I've had team members helping with the preparing of my weekly blog and now video content, specifically with tasks like laying out the post in WordPress. Now, really, this is a super straightforward process, but it has a bunch of key details that are critical and not to be missed. For instance, which tags get added to which posts, how to make sure that the right person is listed as the author, ensuring that there are consistent naming conventions for the media files and that the posts are scheduled for publication on the right day and the right time on a regular basis. So with tasks like this, there are so many very minor, very specific details that ensure consistency and a successful outcome. That's where documenting your process is super important. Yeah, most people with a basic knowledge of WordPress could likely cut and paste your post and get it published on the site. But there are probably specific things that you already do that ensure it looks right, on brand, or functions properly for SEO purposes. That kind of stuff that the average VA may or may not know to do. Now, it's also possible that your new team member will know tricks or have skills that you don't. So you always want to welcome and encourage feedback, suggestions, and collaboration if they see improvements to your process. Point being, if they're just getting started in your world, Don't just throw them in the deep end and see if they sink or swim. At least hand them a set of floaties in the form of some kind of basic process documentation, or what I love to call a how-to helper, to give them the deets on how you've successfully completed this process so far. Finally, let's talk about strategy number 3. Mistakes are not your enemy. One of the biggest fears for a lot of entrepreneurs hiring team members for the first time is that their new hires are going to mess everything up and make a bunch of mistakes, which is why I want to share with you a piece of wisdom passed along to me by a former corporate client of mine. She was the chief HR officer for a global corporation, and she always told her staff this: embrace mistakes. Just make new ones. Mistakes are bound to happen. We're human. We goof up on things that we've been doing correctly for years. Have you ever mindlessly put your mug of coffee in the fridge and started to walk off with the creamer to head back to work? I mean, seriously, mistakes are just part of the human experience, and that is just as true for our team members as it is for us. The second half of that wisdom, just make new ones, is the real key. The goal is that we learn from our mistakes, and that should be your message to your team members too. They need to know that you're not going to flip out and fire them when they goof up. And you need to be able to trust each other enough to be able to talk about problems when they arise and figure out what needs to happen to ensure that the same mistake doesn't get persistently repeated. That's the actual danger zone. That's the real problem. That's where we start getting concerned about someone's ability to improve and learn and perform at the level needed. So if your team member didn't knock it out of the park this time, then part of your job as their manager, as a kick-ass boss, is to help them recognize, learn, and discover what could have made this outcome better. It's your job to supportively and graciously offer them the opportunity to learn. And that could be by asking questions like, how do you think we could avoid that next time? Or what could we do differently to make this better in the future? Or it might be through offering specific feedback about things to watch for or keep in mind the next time around. Either way, your investment and willingness to take that time to encourage and build up your team members is 100% worth it. If something didn't work out well this time, don't just grumble and feel irritated or resentful. Talk about it. The success of each task and each member of your team is your responsibility, Freedom Lover. And if you're recognizing that you could be showing up and supporting your team even better, more effectively, then you might be ready to learn what it's going to take to stop getting stuck in the trap of the exhausted entrepreneur and instead step into your future as the visionary CEO for your business. That's why you'll want to make sure to hop on over to chosencourse.com/I want more and watch the Road to Inspired Action video series, which can finally show you what's missing in your current business that would make a huge difference in your ability to finally experience the freedom you've been craving since you first got started. The road ahead is yours, Freedom Lover. You ready to make something amazing happen?